welcome the final, last but not least, rider. Frank D'Amico, whose popular moth performance is lucky for us, YouTubeable. So now, after taking us into the Dutchess County woods on the first day of deer hunting season in that selection, First Hill, and then next, leading us into the dark terrain of his mind as he struggles to meet a deadline in his work, The Severity of My Solitude, tonight, Frank will take us on a stroll through Times Square, 1977. Let's give a special.
Thanks very much. Okay. The tourists never sat at the bar. My regulars were made up of strippers, prostitutes, pimps, drug dealers, ushers from the cheap movie theaters on 42nd Street, and a few local shop owners. My favorite was Nikki Starr, a beautiful black exotic dancer. She performed at one of the porn joints on 8th Avenue. The tourists sat at booths in the dining area and stole glances from behind their menus and tall beverages. If they were careful not to disturb them, perhaps they could observe the freaks of Times Square in their natural habitat. Of course, often there'd be some bold-ass slob who'd fix an imposing stare like he'd just purchased a front-row ticket for the tent show. And no one was better equipped to address this matter than Nikki. She'd swivel her bar stool around to face the offending patron and his family, work her skirt up her thighs, spread her legs, and flash her always leaves him speechless python-like cock. I worked the day shifts at the Brew Burger on the corner of Broadway and 42nd. The manager's distaste for my clientele kept them in the dining area, smiling at tourists and barking at the wait staff. This allowed for me to sip bourbon from a coffee cup throughout my shift. Still, I was careful not to get caught because, to my way of thinking, only thing worse than working a steady job is looking for one. At the end of my shifts, I spent most of my time hanging on the square. I had some friends downtown, but I was growing tired of the punk scene and its posers, a bunch of brats whose crash and burn posturing could easily be extinguished with one slap up alongside the head. It's often said that punk was the last good scene that New York City had to offer. Maybe so, but the musicians and the poets had a cool thing before it became a scene. Scenes and the people who live for them always suck. I preferred the companionship of the genuine hedonists of Times Square. Unlike the punks, they didn't display razor blades on the breast pockets of their black leather jackets. They concealed switchblades in their boots and under the waistbands of their black latex G-strings. And any pissant motherfucker who thought he could cruise the back rooms and the after hours of Times Square with a chip on his shoulder was likely to get cold-cocked and tossed to the curb. Nikki Starr and I eventually formed a friendship and spent a lot of our evenings in the balconies of the triple features on 42nd, drinking bourbon and smoking dust-laced reefer. Scuzzier, stinkier, and more on the verge of collapse than most of my beloved dive bars, the 42nd Street movie theaters were my favorite places to hide. The aged, torn, and frayed seats were still somewhat more comfortable than the dive bar stools, and the darkness was even darker. But more importantly, the drinking was cheaper. The ushers, bringing in store-bought beverages from the outside was no problem. The ushers, outfitted in ill-fitting and worn uniform jackets, didn't give a fuck. And probably would have taken no notice if you would have rolled in and tapped yourself a whole fucking keg of beer. The movie house floors on 42nd weren't littered with the usual sweepings of discarded milk dud boxes, Twizzler wraps, and popcorn buckets. The sticky raw floors on the strip were bestrewn with crushed beer cans and empty plastic liquor bottles and the like. But what really made the stinking caverns of misfits most welcoming was the permissive policy on the matter of smoking dope. Sure, the air reeked of the funk of unbathed bodies, but competing with that stench was the sweet smell of marijuana and the acrid aroma of angel dust. The symphony of sips of lips in the dark, pulling on pipes and sucking on joints was incessant and soothing. Those who frequented the movie theaters on 42nd did so because there was no better place. No place better to drink. No place better to get high. No better place to nap in the dark. No better place to sink bathe a layer of scum from one's filth-encrusted flesh. No better place to hide. I found comfort in the company to isolation of the movie theaters on 42nd between Broadway and 8th Avenue. It often occurs to me that perhaps I moved to New York City because it offered better places to hide. Although the balconies of the Tripper features were closed off, Nikki and I were hooked up with the ushers, and our free admission included all access. And always, about halfway into the first flick, Nikki would begin her bourbon-induced ritual of rubbing my inner thigh and cooing into my ear. "Let me suck your cock, Dee. Be a good girl and watch the picture." She'd cup her hand over my crook. "Clint Eastwood's a faggot," and then she'd purr, "You're the man." She'd lean her breast against me, "And I'm your best girl." Fact was, she was becoming just that. None of the girls I was hanging with could compare to Nikki. She was beautiful and sassy, a luscious little badass, savagely sweet and sinful. And the straight up truth, I think I was a bit sweet on her. You might even say I had a little crush. I think this is what Nikki sensed, but she also knew I couldn't get past the idea that she had a cock. Ordinarily, Nikki's advances were cute and harmless, but one evening while we were drinking and smoking in the balcony, she began to get aggressive and mean-spirited. "What do you think, Dee, huh? You think your fucking cock is made of gold?" "No, babe, flesh and blood, just like yours." She attached a firm grip to my crotch. "I think you're a fucking faggot. I think you're a scared-ass little faggot, and I think you're afraid of how much you dig it with me. Hey, come on, Nikki, I like things just the way they are." She then put her face closer to mine. "You can't have it both ways, fuckhead." Then she licked my face, bit my nose, and ran from the balcony. I stayed in my seat for a short time. I was all fucked up on a feeling that up until now had been exclusive to breakup fights with girlfriends. Now this made me feel very awkward and whatnot. I decided to go back to my room and drink myself to sleep. I wasn't about to ponder over whether some beautiful chick with a pecker was my old lady. I stopped at the front desk to check in with Spoon and see if he'd been able to sort out the cause of the stink that was seemingly emitting from one of the walls of my room. I was certain it was a dead, decaying rat. Spoon insisted, no rats. At 60-something, Spoon was a washed-up boxer from Harlem whose big, fat face seemed eternally swollen from all the beatings he'd suffered. He sat like a grotesque black wax figure collecting weekly rents for a swine landlord who owned several of these shit-ass flop houses around the 5 boroughs. Spoon tried to convince me that he'd actually moved his fat ass from his tattered old chair to look into my situation and that I no longer had to worry. He'd taken care of the offending odor. As I left the window open before leaving for work that morning, my 5th floor room was freezing, and the stench had grown so thick I could barely breathe. I switched on the overhead fluorescents, grabbed the bourbon from the bedside table, and dragged my sorry ass down to the bathroom at the end of the hallway. Futures never come from rooms like this. The next morning I stopped in the lobby and demanded that Spoon find the source of the stink or move me to another room. I then used the payphone to call Nikki's room, but she wasn't answering. I went to the deli for an egg sandwich and strolled to work. By the end of my shortened shift, I was pretty worked up. I'd spent the day sipping on bourbon and calling Nikki's room. The manager fucked his face all up when I insisted I had to leave early. The manager at the porn house where Nikki worked fucked his face all up when he informed me that she hadn't come to work that day. The manager at her flop house fucked his face all up when he said he hadn't seen Nikki and she was behind on her rent. Managers are always fucking their faces all up. The evening finally found me drinking alone at the Howard Johnson's bar. The funds were low, so I was nursing the beer and bourbon. I don't mind drinking alone. I like to sit and savor the warm high of the bourbon, cascading through my veins without the distractions of people who lack the skill of engaging in conversation, but rather drone on about the tedium and the ordinary that they find so fucking fascinating about their savagely dreadful lives. But tonight I was feeling a little lonely, so I didn't mind when I was joined at the bar by a middle-aged, well-groomed, heavy-set woman who introduced herself as Doris. Doris told me that she was from New Jersey and was in cosmetics. She told me she'd had a meeting with Revlon today about some kind of new face shit. She told me that before she returned home, she wanted to take in some New York City nightlife. I told her I'm D and I'm broke. Doris then ordered me a bourbon and a beer, offered me a cigarette, and proposed that I keep her company for the evening. She suggested food and drink, a gallery opening on the east side, and then, well, she said, and then she placed her palm on my knee and whispered in a surprisingly kind of sexy purr, whatever else the night might offer. I can't do the sexy purr, but believe me, it was terribly sexy. And at evening's end, Doris would see to it that I should go home with more than a little extra cash in my pocket. To my way of thinking, this was a woman with nothing but good intentions. The gallery opening and 3 Upper East Side bars later, I got to thinking about cutting this commitment short. At some point in the evening, Doris kept coming at me with her drunken tongue. Kiss me, she demanded. And as I had my mind's eye on the cash prize at the end of the evening, I opened my mouth and took her tongue with grace and charm, and I kissed her. But I began to eyeball that fancy-ass bag that hung from her shoulder, and deemed it just and fair that if Doris should leave it unattended, I should take my earnings earlier than agreed upon and cab it back to the square, whereupon I would continue my pursuit of Nikki. But every time old Doris left the bar, the ladies' room, payphone, jukebox, whenever she wandered from the bar, that big fat fancy bag bounced off that big fat fancy red round-faced shit ass. I was in for the long haul. Must have been around 11 o'clock when I determined that it was time for me to move things along. Time to get Doris's mind focused on the carnal joys that I was to provide. Time to wrap this portion of the evening up. I wanted my money and I wanted to find Nikki Starr. So I began to work my charm and put the ooh mama mama moves on Doris. I moved in closer to her stool and swiveled it to face me. I slid my hand under her skirt and gently fingered her panties. When we entered the lobby of Doris's hotel, I couldn't help but notice that the folks behind the front desk couldn't help but notice the raggedy-ass fella accompanying Doris onto the elevator. They eyeballed me intently and suspiciously. I determined that upon fulfilling the evening services, I would be mindful to exit the rotating doors possessing only what rightfully belonged to me. But just then, old Doris placed her foot to block the Otis doors from closing and stepped out from the elevator. No, 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 she screeched. I am not done. Your New York. I want to see your New York. Oh, for fuck's sake, I thought to myself. And then I said out loud, oh, for fuck's sake, Doris. Her face dropped and her eyes got all hurtful and whatnot. Oh, please, come on, Dee, please, please, please. Your New York, your New York, your New York. Like a child pleading for one more ride, protesting the day's conclusion. Doris, listen, I don't really have a New York. Certainly not a New York that could compare to yours. Come on, what do you say we just go upstairs and then I tried to add a little ooh mama mama tone to my voice there, and I'll make you forget New York even exists, babe. Oh, fuck that, she huffed. And then she narrowed her eyes and whispered, I want to explore the seedy side of New York. I first took Doris to one of my favorite walled-in dirt traps over in Hell's Kitchen. Tommy's was one of those joints where livers and dreams go to die. Each time I walked into Tommy's, the low dropped ceiling seemed to be dropping lower. Perhaps one day it would collapse altogether and crush the depressed and the lonely, whose souls had long ago already been crushed. God, I love this place. A far cry from her Upper East Side cocktail lounges, I'd hoped this dismal dive would scare Doris off. Perhaps she'd choose to abort her mission to discover the seedy New York. But as out of place as Doris looked in her Revlon-faced ship clothes, she seemed to take to the place with ease and began doing the how-do-you-do's and whatnot with Tommy's stagnant regulars, which at first failed to elicit any sign of reciprocation. I loved how disinclined these folks were to engage in even the most basic of social exchanges. But then Doris began offering cigarettes and buying beers. And though the gang seemed dumbstruck, they started to show signs of life, which quite frankly I found disturbing. Doris even introduced herself to Rosie, the bearded old woman who sat perpetually attached to the jukebox. Rosie was an excellent player of the spoons, residing in a venue where there was little appreciation for the spoon solo, so she kept her playing to a minimum. But on this night, obliging Doris's cash-sweetened request, Rosie was moved to play the spoons like I'd never seen her play before. As Doris fed the jukebox and stuffed single-dollar bills into Rosie's coat pockets, her performance became more and more animated, working herself into a near frenzy. It was almost masochistic the way old Rosie was slapping her body with those spoons. And then Tommy McCabe, the frowning proprietor who never offered the slightest grin except to laugh at his own racist jokes, came out from behind the bar, a hootin' and a yahooing and offering his "may I have this dance" hand to Doris. Frowning Tommy McCabe, dancing. Frowning Tommy's grotesquely thin frame, moving in spasms, out of sync with the beat of the blaring juke music, was dancing with Revlon face shit Doris. In front of the jukebox, over which hung Tommy's handwritten sign, "No fucking dancing." Tommy was breaking his own fucking rule, which up until now probably never had a cause to be endorsed. And then, when Doris euphorically screeched for another round on me, barkeep, frowning Tommy's exaggerated gestures left no doubt that he was demanding the pub's patrons to join Doris on the newly designated dance floor. This was a savagely, the whole world's gone topsy-turvy, utter madness, completely insane scene. As mentioned earlier, I loved this place, but I never enjoyed this place. I never had a good time drinking at Tommy's pub. Nobody enjoyed drinking at Tommy's. In fact, it was the lack of joy, the absence of any sign of a good time that drew me to places like this. Perhaps drinking in the company of the savagely suckers of life made me dislike myself less. At any rate, it was clear to me now that if I were to catch up with the evening, and Nikki's whereabouts in it, I was going to have to cut my losses and give Revlon face shit Doris the slip. And to that purpose, I moved swiftly and cautiously. With the pub's faithful preoccupied with having a good time, I quickly snatched a 20 from Doris's pile of cash on the bar, and then opened, and for the last time, let the door of frowning Tommy's pub and its descending ceilings slammed shut behind me. The Aces was a bar located in the rear space of an abandoned warehouse on 11th Avenue. It opened at 11 p.m. and admittance was exclusive to the late-night local in-crowd. Just a bunch of the same folks who I served not more than a few blocks away at the Brew Burger during the day. Most of us referred to the Aces as the Outs on account of the large amounts of cocaine openly and readily poured on most any available flat surface. The house policy that allowed for local bartenders to drink at half price made this a frequent stop for me. In recent weeks, Nikki took a liking to the place, so she usually joined me. I ordered a bourbon and leaned my back to the bar to scan the room. There she was, bent over the pool table, her body stretched across the felt surface, poised to take a shot. And standing over Nikki, clad in black leather with his crotch pressed against her butt, was some punk-ass motherfucker, fashioned more in the vogue of the long-haired glam punks of Max's Kansas City, rather than the spike-haired, dirty-ass style of the CBGB Bowery punks. I felt my body ignite in a blaze of burning jealousy, a feeling not unfamiliar to me, but one that I might experience when a girlfriend flirts for the attention of another fella or downright cheated on me. Yes, jealousy, a feeling associated with a cheating girlfriend. A girlfriend with a vagina. Nikki took her time lining up her side pocket shot, and then she looked up to where I stood across the room and fixed her eyes on mine. She sneered, wiggled her ass against Glam Punk's crotch, and called, "8-ball, side pocket." And without moving her cold stare from my eyes, she executed her shot perfectly. As Glam Punk applauded the winning shot gleefully, Nikki stood erect, calmly placed the cue on the table, kicked back a shot, and called for the next challengers to rack 'em up! The adrenaline already racing through my body as I panicked, a jealousy-induced high anxiety panic, kicked it up a notch when Nikki excused herself from the table for a moment and approached. "Nikki," I choked. "Hey, D, looking for me?" Yeah, you think maybe we could get out of here?" "I'm with a friend." "Yeah, but I was thinking maybe we could what, D? Huh? We could what?" My presence appeared to annoy her. She seemed irritable. She was being huffy and addressing me belligerently. Desperate and trembling, my mind raced to find the right words. The moment was escaping me, moving entirely too fast and slipping away. She was slipping away. I didn't think ahead. I hadn't anticipated Nikki's anger. The look of disgust on her face scared me and left me mute. I needed to find the words that would slow this moment down. What does Nikki want to hear? What does she want to say? What does she want me to say to persuade her to run off into the night with me? And then Glam Punk called out, "Nikki, come on, we're up." And then the words came to me. They were there all along, the very words she'd been wanting to hear since our first night shared in the theater balcony on 42nd Street. The words that would please her and bring the acceleration of this moment to a screeching halt. As she began to turn toward the pool table, I took her wrist and just spit it out. "Nikki, let's go. Let's get out of this place. I really, really want you to suck my cock." There was a brief pause, and then the moment re-accelerated, and with firm and dangerous intent, and with the swiftness of a ninja, Nikki escaped my grip, pulled at my hand, and just as I heard and recognized the sinister, sharp click sound, Nikki slid her pink-handled switchblade across the palm of my open hand. As I stepped off the elevator, my fisted right hand gripping a bloody bar rag, I immediately noticed a cop sitting in a folding chair at the closed door outside the room next to mine. "Evening, officer, what's going on? You got a dead neighbor. The old woman's been lying dead in there for days. You didn't smell that stench?" Futures never come to rooms like this.